What's that? No, I've been on the computer this whole time. Yeah, and we're still not done. We're gonna have to do one after council. I haven't had a chance to read it.
Dawn, you're going to have to unmute yourself. I muted you when you were away talking.
You didn't want to hear what I had to say?
Well, you know, I just was being safe.
Tracy, you want to know if I fed the dogs?
We heard what you had to say.
Oh, there you go. I said no. I've been on the computer the whole time.
Good thing Lori's not still here.
Oh, yeah.
Not feeding
Good
your
thing.
dog.
Yeah, I know. I'd probably be arrested.
I've already called.
Thank you. Very nice. So we got about a minute to go here. We got everybody. Let's see. Steve, Mark, Jeremy. Missing Sean.
Sean and John.
Well, we'll give him a minute here. Waiting on Sean, John, and Mr. Raff. There's Sean. There we go. Okay, here we go. It's 7:01. I'd like to call this meeting of your Newark City Council to order, April 19th, 2021. Hopefully our last Zoom meeting. Janine, please call the roll.
Ms. Hall? Ms. Hall? Mr. Harris?
Unmute
Here.
yourself.
Mr. Labutus? Mr. Lang?
Present.
Mr. Marmee?
Present.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Barker?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Bob? Mr. Fennell?
Here.
Okay, we have all here are present this evening. I've shut the window, so there'll be no wind chimes this evening for anyone to comment on. Next, we have the invocation by Mr. Labutus.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we continue to pray this evening. We thank you for this day that you've given us to serve once again. I just ask that you be with us this evening in this meeting, that you would help us to keep in mind your plans for our city, and that you would bless our discussion and bless our work this day. These things I ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Labutus. Next, if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Barker. for the flag. Next, we have caucus. That's the time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything? Seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes of our April 5th, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Labutus, second by Mr. Bub. All those in favor signify by a thumbs up. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. Next, under appointments, we have an appointment by Mayor Hall reappointing Bill Wilson to the Heath, Newark, Licking County Port Authority Board of Directors. His new 4-year term will begin June 1st, 2021 and expire May 31st. I think that's 2025. Mr. Hall, would you like to say anything? Mayor Hall?
Yes, yeah, that is 2025. 2035 would be quite a commitment. Bill is a great person in our area. He's been on the Port Authority for many years, brings a wealth of knowledge to them. They are very open-armed to welcome him back again, and surely ask that we do that reappointment to him. He, as I say, very involved. I believe he's been on the Port Authority board since inception. So he brings a lot of knowledge to that board. So I just ask that you give him a nod in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions? All those in favor, give me a thumbs up. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. We have 3 reports this evening from standing committees, one from finance, one from service, and one from streets. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We also have a report this evening from our auditor, Stephen Johnson. The operating report for the period ending March 31st, 2021. Without objection, that will also be received and filed. Under communications, we have one from our auditor, Stephen Johnson. Auditor's office was awarded the certificate of excellence in financial reporting by the government financial offices of the United States and Canada. Mr. Johnson, are you on?
I am.
Would you like to say anything? I know this is about what the umpteenth year in a row.
Well, I look forward to you saying our award-winning auditor every meeting. So I'm glad that we received this award again, so that tradition can continue. But as I said before, this is because of the excellent staff I have and the very professional work they do to the citizens and to the city. So hopefully this streak will continue.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank
Very
you.
good, and congratulations. And we have one other communication from the auditor of state regarding the finance audit for the city of Newark for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. Without objection, that will also be received and filed. Next on the agenda this evening, we have comments from citizens. That's the time for you to be heard. This is not a debate with council or question and answer period with council. This is just your opportunity to state what's on your mind. If anyone would like to speak this first section, there is one now and one after the legislation. If anyone would like to speak this first section, if you please unmute yourself so I can recognize you, and then I will call on you and let you speak. I see we have the Smiths. Hang on. Anyone else, if you'd please put your video on so I can see you. We'll start with Mr. or Mrs. Smith. Not sure which one. If you'll give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, Rochelle Volan Smith at 237 Violet Court. First of all, I wanted to congratulate Mr. Johnson for a wonderful job and a well-deserved honor. I had 2 questions. One is on the nature works. I wanted to find out, for one, whether those monies are being used in other areas besides Horns Hill, and in what capacity. And then I also wanted to find out about the railroad Railroad Street project. We just spent a lot of time there this weekend cleaning up with a bunch of other really hardworking people. So anyway, those are my 2 questions.
Okay, that it?
Might have another question as a result of the answer, but that's basically it.
Okay. All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's start with, can we start? Okay. Um, could, will I get an answer later or
Well, hopefully,
how does?
yeah. I can't answer either one of those. And again, this is not a question and
Don, I
answer
can
period
answer
with
the,
council.
Don, I can
Okay,
answer the
go ahead,
Nature
Mr.
Works
Wood.
grant. Nature Works grant is
Sure.
something we apply for and we use it in different areas of town. This particular application is in regards to upgrades at Horns Hill Park. The next application might be in regards to upgrades of a different park in the city or something else going on in the city. So it is applied around the city, not just in one area.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Miss Carolyn Cook, do you have a comment?
First, I'd like to thank Jonathan Lang for suggesting that information gets put on Facebook for people about zoning issues, because I appreciate that. The other issue that I have is that not only does the public need information from you about what's happening, but you need to have better ways of getting information from us and getting input from us. And I know soon we'll be hiring a police chief. And I think the public needs a way to provide input in that choice. Because we need the people most affected by different things in the city need to have ways to give you their input so that you understand what's going on in their particular area and the way that they interact with the services and the people in the city. So that's my suggestion, is you find new ways of doing that. I know that before we've done some studies like on transportation and homelessness, but then things don't seem to happen. So it needs to be ongoing. It's not just one-time thing that you get information, but we need to know what's happening with those things after we give you you get community input. Thank you.
Thank you. And Linda Mossel.
I would just, you probably already know that the city of Newark is scheduled to receive a little over $18 million in Rescue Act funds. I believe that's going to be in two different parts. I was wondering that if the community will have some input so we can kind of maybe think outside the box. I know it has to be COVID related, and some things, for example, that maybe that money could be used for since COVID has resulted in an increase in the number of overdoses in the area. It could possibly be used for fentanyl testing strips, Narcan, or other types of things that would help individuals in the city. So I assume that money will be coming down fairly soon. From what I read on the National Association of Cities, it should be starting to come down probably within 60 days. And I just was wondering if as Carolyn said, if the citizens will be made aware of the plans and how that money will be spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I'm not sure the timing on that, but maybe the mayor will speak during his chance to comment if he knows.
Okay, thank you.
Michael Regan, did you want to speak? Okay, guess not. Anyone else?
President Ellinger, this is Molly Prasher.
Or Ellington is close enough, but go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, President Ellington. Okay, now I can start.
Molly, hang on. Just give us your name and address for the record and go right ahead.
Molly Prasher, 701 Tall Oaks Drive here in Newark. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Following up with something Carolyn said, will something be published or will information be available about what your process is that the administration will use in hiring the new chief? And is it normally something that you do that the finalists get an opportunity to do does the city offer a meet and greet for residents to meet these people and possibly give some kind of feedback to the administration? And I certainly want to express my sympathies to the Baum family, because this is going to be very difficult for them with the city moving on And I'm sure they're so devastated that it's very hard to see people move on. And I hope we keep them in our thoughts and prayers, as well as the department. It's a great loss for the department. So thank you for this opportunity to speak. Good evening.
Thank you. I know we just did an interview, not long ago for the chief position. I'm not sure what the mayor has in mind, but if he has an opportunity, he could tell us, or maybe he does not know yet, so we'll see. Michael?
Yes, I
You'll
just
give us
want to kind of.
name- Give us your name and address for the record and go right ahead. I got you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Michael Regan, 474 East Main Street, here in Newark, Ohio, 43055.
Okay.
I just kind of want to reflect kind of what Molly was saying there. Just curious about the process of how the chief is elected or appointed into that office, and if the community as a whole gets to have any type of input in that process, being that that position will directly affect every single citizen in Newark, and how things are carried out and done according to the police force. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Again, the police chief is the mayor's discretion, so maybe he'll have a comment, or maybe he doesn't know yet, so we'll see. Okay. Again, there's one other opportunity for comments from citizens after the legislation, so that will be here in just a few minutes. If you think of something you want to say, you can always get back on. Next, we have ordinances on the second reading. There are none this evening. We'll go on to ordinances on the first reading. 21-15, Janine.
Ordinance number 21-15 by Mr. Fennell. An ordinance vacating a part of a 20-foot wide alley as shown on the plat of Lucius Smith's edition as recorded in volume 2, page 156 of the Licking County plat records and renumbered in volume 52, page 19 of the Licking County deed records. Said alley is located south of East Railroad Street between South 2nd and South 3rd Streets.
21-15 will be held for 2 weeks until our next meeting. And next we move on to resolutions on the second reading, 21-19.
Resolution number 21-19 by Mr. Marmee, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to apply for funding from the United States Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance under the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Program.
You've heard the second reading of 21-19. What is your wish?
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt resolution 21-19.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmee.
Second.
Second by Mr. Labutus. Is there any discussion on 21-19? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris. Mr. Labutus. Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Marmee. Mr. Rath.
Yes.
Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Bub.
Yes.
Mr. Fennell. Mr.
Mel,
Fennell.
did you vote yes? Yes, thank you. 21-19 passes 10-0. Next on the second reading, we have 21-20.
Resolution number 21-20 by Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing the conveyance of certain real property now owned by the city of Newark, Ohio to Newark Development Partners as its agent for industrial, commercial, distribution, and research.
You've heard the second reading of 21-20. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
make a motion to adopt 21-20.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 21-20? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell.
Yes.
21-20 passes 10-0. Next, we move on to resolutions on the first reading, 21-21.
Resolution number 21-21 by Mr. Markey, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
21-21 will be held for 2 weeks till our next meeting. Next on the first reading, we have 21-22.
Resolution number 21-22 by Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to participate in the ODOT winter contract 018-22 for road salt and declaring an emergency.
21-22 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 21-22.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Bell. Is there any discussion on 21-22?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
yes, the reason this has the emergency clause is to coincide with ODOT bidding deadlines.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Any other discussion on 21-22? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell.
Yes.
21-22 passes 10-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-23.
Resolution number 21-23 expedite by Mr. Marmy, resolution appropriated monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
21-23.
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy?
I make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on 21-23.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Bub. Mr. Marmy?
Thank you, Mr. President. We have some things that need to be expedited here. It is some salaries, some payouts. So we always expedite those to make sure that we get the funds to the appropriate person quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Janine, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell.
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmy?
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt resolution 21-23.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Bub. Is there any other discussion on 21-23? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell.
Yes.
21-23 passes 10-0. And finally tonight, we have 21-24.
Resolution number 21-24 by Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to accept bids and sell certain surplus personal property now owned by the city of Newark, Ohio, and declaring that such property is no longer needed for any municipal purpose and declaring an emergency.
21-24 will be held for 2 weeks until our next reading.
Mr. President,
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it. That was an emergency. I'm sorry. It's on the first reading. It is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt 21-24.
Motion by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 21-24?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
21-24 has the emergency clause to meet the deadlines for advertising for the sale of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Any other discussion on 21-24? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell.
Yes.
And 21-24 passes 10-0. That will conclude the legislation for this evening. Next on the agenda, we have our second opportunity for comments from citizens. Again, this is not a question and answer period with council. This is just your opportunity to be heard. If you would like to speak, please turn your video on. I will recognize you and we'll get started. Mr. or Mrs. Smith, one or the other, or both.
Rochelle Volin-Smith, 237 Violet Court. I wanted a clarification on ordinance 2115, the Lucius Smith edition. What is that organization? The well, why is it?
Hang on just a second.
Why are we
I don't know about anybody.
closing up an
I don't know about
alley?
anybody else. I'm not sure about anybody else, but I lost you completely on that one. I heard you say you had a question about 21-15 and then I didn't hear anything else.
Yeah.
So try it again.
Okay. I wanted to find out more about the place of beginning and why an alley is being vacated for it, and
There's an
What is-
organization marked the place of beginning.
on East Railroad Street.
Okay. We'll see if anyone has an answer to that. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, can I answer that question, Mr. President?
Sure. Go ahead, Director Sassen.
A very simple answer. I don't know why the place of beginning is capitalized. It's not an entity. It's simply a starting and ending point for the meets and bounds legal description of the alley that's being vacated.
Okay, so who is getting that property and what is it going to be used for?
When an alley is vacated, the adjoining property owners, the property extends to the middle of the alley. So the people on both sides of the alley will assume one half of that alley and they can use it for whatever purpose they like.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Anyone else like to speak?
Mr. President, I think Linda Mossholder, she has her hand raised. I asked her to start her video.
Oh, okay. This is Mossholder.
Okay.
Ms. Mossholder.
Linda Mossholder, 224 Green Meadow Drive in Newark. I would just like to give an update on something that was mentioned at the last council meeting. The Newark Homeless Outreach partnered with the health department to give the COVID vaccinations. It was on the 10th, and we were able to vaccinate 22 people. So that's 22 more people who are vaccinated. We were also helping the Salvation Army and Vertical 196 work with the health department to also get their populations vaccinated. So it's just mainly an update.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Do we have any city officials this evening who would like to speak?
Apparently you had your chance.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Hickman?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Development Director Motter was unable to make it tonight, so he asked that I give council the following update. On Saturday, 4/17, the South Newark Civic Association held their annual cleanup day in conjunction with the city of Newark. City departments of community development, property maintenance, and parks all contributed manpower to make this a successful event. Close to 900 mailers were sent out in advance to notify residents of the event, how they could participate, and where to bring their disposable items. The parking lot at the old Little Bear Market was the collection drop-off location. Property maintenance staff did property inspections of all the residences within the cleanup area to let anyone know of any possible violations, excuse me, and where they could bring their trash to this event. Once again, residents could arrange via appointment to have a city truck come to their home and pick up any waste items and haul them away to drop off site. The day was considered a success, even though participation and volunteer help from OSUN and Denison was down somewhat. Finally, the city is teaming up with the Hudson Historic District for a cleanup day this coming Saturday, April 24th. That's it.
Mr. President, you're muted.
All right, now we'll go to miscellaneous. Our award-winning auditor, Mr. Johnson.
I'll pass, Mr. President. Thank you.
Oh, all that and you're going to pass?
I am. I'm saving it for another meeting.
Honorable Law Director Sassen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll comment very briefly on some questions that were asked during citizen comments with regard to the replacement for Chief Baum. The process that the city is required to follow is set forth in Chapter 7 of the Ohio Revised Code. And it's a very specific civil service process as to testing, certification of a list of available candidates, and how that selection is made. And those rules tie the mayor's hands probably more than he would like. Maybe it frees him up to follow a stricter procedure, but the procedure set forth in the Ohio Revised Code is very clear, and the mayor is required to follow that process. And I believe that in discussions with the administration and HR Director Spurgeon, that's exactly what they are doing.
Thank you, Director Sassen. Mayor Hall.
Yes, thank you, President Ellington. I'll comment on a couple things to kind of piggyback on what Law Director Sassen said. We are going through a complete process to be sure we dot the I's across the T's as far as how Ohio Revised Code, Civil Service, a lot of guidelines to this. Our city charter does not cover it, but you know, there's all those little parts and pieces that we have to go through and look and be sure we do it the right way. It varies across communities across Ohio and in the country, and it does also vary across villages versus cities and things like that. So there isn't always the master book. You go right here and do 1 and then 2 and then 3. It's a little bit of an investigative process, and I truly want to thank our HR department and thank Doug Sassen's Law Director Department for that input on that. Some of the process we've been going through grieving with the police department, and that's critical and important. If you think about a retirement of a chief, you plan for that, you know that's coming. This obviously was quite unexpected. So as a result, I think the shock was a little more. The police department has to keep rolling, and they have. They've done a phenomenal job by the structure of the chief and deputy chiefs working together as they have in the past years. So I have had no concerns or worries from that point. And but we had to be sure we also gave them a little space to grieve and understand that. So we always had a lot of dialogue and a lot of conversations to go through that. The entire department, they're people like you and I, and like anybody else. So, you know, it's very tough when you lose someone that's only been with you 8 months. You know, it's kind of tough in many ways. So anyways, there's been some focus on that, but we are making sure we cover the process and know what we can and can't do. I do want to thank Linda Mossholder for updating us and working with the health department. Kudos on getting those vaccines out. That's critical in our community in so many ways. And it's just outstanding when you report the numbers and what you've achieved. I love that. That's great. The American Rescue Plan, we are anxiously awaiting for those guidelines from the U.S. Treasury Department, as everyone is. I was told they had made a statement about 3 weeks ago that it'd be about a month. So are we anticipating a week out on that? I don't know. But that's, you know, I would agree in the next 60 days, you'd like to think there's some distribution. But in the next couple of weeks, we hope the guidelines will come out and we can start to create some parameters around that, how it's going to be best used throughout our community to improve help to the citizens and help to the community in many ways. So it's usually not simple either. It's pretty complex, and we want to do the right thing. And then finally, I will offer, while our auditor is keeping a little quiet this evening, I'll offer Steve Johnson and his staff, and he says it right, kudos to receiving the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. That's something that doesn't happen overnight. That happens every day in that department. And it handles quite a bit for the few people they have, and they do a great job. And I think I would speak also for the administration as well as council, that is comforting to know that all those bases are covered and we stay in a very good compliant manner as we do financial reporting. And of course, On the heels of that is our external audit. So there's never any rest for the weary a little bit. And Steve and his team are getting ready for the external auditors to come in and audit the city, which is quite a daunting task, but a good one in many ways. So with that, thank you, everyone, and I will pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Hall.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank our property maintenance department. They've been really good about getting bugged over some things. You know, some people when they call, they don't understand that you have to go by the law. You can't just walk onto somebody's property and start cleaning it up for them. So they've been very patient and they've stayed on top of this particular issue in my ward. And I just wanted to thank them for that. And with that, I will pass. Everybody take care.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Harris?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the city workers for working the South Side cleanup Saturday. I was down there for a couple hours and they really did a nice job. Also wanted to give you guys a quick update. I don't know, about a month ago, if you guys remember, Deanna Wycliffe came to us about her daughter getting hit by a car. Her and I went, and her daughter went to the school board meeting last Monday night and talked to the school board meeting and explained what happened. And we suggested maybe to get a crossing guard down there at Cedar Street to help the kids get across the street. So Mr. Lewis was going to check into that, and he was actually going to go down and look at the intersection to see what they can do. I also want to thank Director Hickman. I talked to him. He got a police officer down there on Friday to look at the traffic and to check things out. So I appreciate all the work that he's done to try to help with that situation. So, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I know one time there used to be a light there, but then I think it wasn't enough reason to keep it, I believe.
I think we've talked about maybe see if they can do another study to see if it calls for another traffic light there. So we'll see what's happened.
You went quiet, Dawn.
Hey, for some reason, I completely lost sound here. I can't hear anybody. So can you tell Mr. Bub to go with Mr. Labutus and go from there, and I'll see if I can't figure this out.
No problem. Mr. Labutus, you may proceed there with your comments.
We can hear you.
Or can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you. I will pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lang, you may proceed.
Yeah, thank you. So first, I wasn't here to extend my condolences regarding the passing of Chief Baum a couple weeks ago. So I just wanted to extend my thoughts to the Baum family and to our police force family. I know they're a tight-knit group, and that was it was hard for everybody. The service a couple weeks ago was very touching, and I think it was a testament to the man that he was, all the people that were there, and certainly the impact he had on the community. So I just wanted to extend my thoughts to everybody grieving there. And I know we're still grieving. Then Linda, thank you for reporting back on the vaccinations. I think that was really important work that you're doing there with the homeless outreach and Vertical and the other groups to get our homeless population vaccinated. So thank you there. And then finally, just wanted to talk a little bit more about the Facebook page. So for anybody who was not at our committee meeting, so I fulfilled a promise made regarding transparency to constituents following some recent questions on some zoning changes that were made. And so what we're going to do going forward to help improve transparency is we're going to be posting public notices to a Newark City Council unofficial Facebook page really just to provide another informal way to get notifications about, in particular, public hearings, but we'll also be posting links to all of our agenda items and making it a little bit easier to follow what's going on with City Council. And that page will be, it's facebook.com/Newark City Council. And I'll post some links there and try to share the page as well. But I wanted to thank President Ellington, Councilman Barker, our Clerk Jenny Paul, and Director Sasson. Thank you all for your help, kind of putting the finishing touches on that, so that we can improve transparency for our constituents, and again make it easier for them to participate and see what council is up to. So thanks to everybody who helped with that, and with that I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee.
Yes, thank you. I need to call a finance committee meeting for 2 weeks from this evening, and with that I will pass.
Mr. Rath. Jeff, Mr. Rath, you can go ahead. You want to unmute yourself?
I was working on it. Call a service committee meeting for 2 weeks, and with that, I will pass.
Thank you. Mr. Barker.
Yes, thank you. I will pass.
Thank you. Mr. Blake.
Thank you very much. I do have some thank yous to send out to various individuals. As was mentioned, the 9th annual, it was 9 years in a row that the South Newark Civic Association hosted a spring neighborhood cleanup. St. John's Church in the South End also provided lunch to the volunteers. So it was a very good Saturday. We were able to get out a lot of garbage. Thank you to Director Motter and property maintenance and the other city employees that worked on that. But it really was a community effort between the number of residents and volunteers to the city workers that helped on that effort. So thank you for that. And so, but while a lot of attention was given to the SNCA, the South Newark Civic Association cleanup, we also had another cleanup over in Wells Park. And Ruth and Donald Hallbaugh, several years ago, Director Rhodes, service director, put in a bench honoring the Hallbaugh's family member. And they've kind of adopted the Wells Park. And so they also had their cleanup over there, and it was it was just a great day of cleanup, both over at Wells Park and also in the South End. So it was a great day of cleanup. The weather was beautiful that day. I want to give some thank yous to some staff members. Lindsay Broughton has been working with me and a few constituents dealing with stormwater issues. Nick Schultz worked with a resident dealing with an issue over on Grant Street. And Joe Paul met with myself and a resident last week, and it was he handled himself kudos to the way the situation was taken care of. And I also want to give a shout out to, while this person wasn't necessarily a city worker, they worked for the YMCA, but they managed Don Edwards Park on our behalf. And the person I'm talking about is Adam Jenkins. And many of you know Adam. He has since moved on, as you probably read in the Advocate, of managing, being the general manager for the Indian Mound Mall. But while he was with us and managing Don Edwards Park, I thought he did an outstanding job. And so I just want to publicly give thanks to that young man and for all the leadership that he provided while he was with us. And so thank you, Adam, for what you did for the parks and for what you did for our city. And I'll just finish by saying that, many times our guidelines and laws and rules that we have to follow are the minimum. But we have to ask ourselves, is the minimum always what is necessary? And sometimes going above the minimum is what is necessary for our particular community. So if it's looking at notifying people through zoning issues, we shouldn't just look at the minimum. If we are looking at hiring key personnel, we shouldn't just always look at the minimum, but we should look at what's best for our citizens and wanting to ensure that our community moves forward together. And so I hope that we don't look at the minimum, we look at more what's better to engage our community and best to get a decision. And finally, I just want to say thank you to Nancy Waylu, Linda Mossholder, and Trish Perry at North Homeless Outreach. I know Nancy did a lot of the spearhead work with Chad Brown to get that effort organized for the vaccinations at the North Homeless Outreach. So thank you very much for doing that. And it's greatly appreciated. And with that, I'll yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell.
Thank you. I will pass.
Okay. And I believe that brings it to me. Just a reminder, we will have Personnel Committee meeting immediately here following City Council. Our next meeting will be May 3rd with committee starting at 5:45. With that, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion.
Okay, a motion by Barker, a second by Harris. All those in favor can signify with thumbs up. This meeting is adjourned. Personnel will start in approximately 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, Ryan, I'm going to sit in for Mark.
Yep, I got you. Okay, I think we have all parties here for this committee, so I believe we can go ahead and get it started. For the record, Spencer, are you ready to roll?
Yeah, Ryan, you're all set.
Okay, it's 7:44. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Ryan Bubb, Jonathan Lang, Jeff Harris, who is sitting in for Mark Labutus, Sean Fennell, Dee Hall. 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first item is an ordinance amending the position classification, pay range, and department authorization tables of the City of Newark, Department of Service, Division of Cemetery Parks, by amending the position of Secretary 1 to the classification of Office Manager, Account Clerk, and setting the compensation therefore. Bill Spurgeon, Human Resources Director, you are on the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. The administration finds itself, as it expands its footprint in the cemetery parks, property maintenance divisions. This committee and the full council was kind enough to create an operations manager in the field. Now it finds itself in needs on the business side of the enterprise, greeting customers, making sure sales run smoothly. This is not a management position, although the account clerk office manager position in its title says that. This was taken out of a similar position in the non-bargaining statement of policy that allows whoever has this job, should the city find itself in dire financial straits, they would have bumping rights in a layoff position. So as opposed to creating a new title, I modeled that after this. This does not create any additional positions. Total will be a neutral proposition. If members of the committee are wondering, the impact to the budget is approximately $3,600. This would be, with your blessing, Secretary 1 is currently pay range 30. I'm proposing the office manager account clerk at a pay range 35. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Anyone from the committee have any questions, comments, or concerns for the Human Resources Director?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lang, you proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, Director Spurgeon, just thank you for anticipating the questions I usually ask. So I appreciate that. And with that, I'll make a motion to send this on to full council.
Okay. Motion on the floor by Councilman Lang. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Councilman Fennell. Any further questions, comments regarding ordinance 21-16? Seeing none. Motion on the floor by Lang, second by Fennell. All those in favor of moving this on to full council can signify with the thumbs up. Those opposed? Motion will pass 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 21-17. It's an ordinance amending the position classification, pay range, and department authorization tables of the City of Newark, Department of Service, Division of Street Traffic Control by creating the classification of data technician, sign fabricator, and setting the compensation therefore. Mr. Spurgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it's amenable to the committee, this position is subject to litigation that our law director's office finds itself currently in. It would be my professional suggestion and belief we should conduct our affairs in executive session.
Okay. Who would you like in the executive session, Mr. Spurgeon, before we vote on this?
I would defer certainly members of the committee. I don't want to put our law director on the spot. I just don't think it serves the greater good to discuss this publicly as it is a matter of litigation.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to send this into executive committee for members of the administration and members of city council?
So moved.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor by Councilman Lang. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Fennell. Okay. So there's a motion by Lang, a second by Fennell to move this into an executive committee meeting. All those in favor can signify with a thumbs up. All those opposed. Okay, motion passes 5-0. At this point, Spencer, if you will take this into executive committee, I believe Ms. Smith, Ms. Prasher, at this point, Mr. Hauser, those three will need to be removed from this as we go into executive committee from what I'm seeing